Are your students' notes messy and unorganized? I'm Jennifer Parker, and I'm here to tell you about a note-taking system that can get your student on the right track. And I'm talking about Cornell Notes. The Cornell method is a note-taking system that was created in the 1950s at Cornell University by education professor William Paulk. Since then, it has been a proven effective note-taking method that is systematic, interactive, and reflective. Let me show you how. Cornell Note template paper is readily available online, but as a part of the interactive experience, we like for our students to create their own Cornell Note paper using regular notebook paper. I'm here to show you the steps of how to set up your paper for Cornell note taking. Here's an example of a piece of Cornell Note template paper that is available online. If you Google Cornell Notes, you'll find a plethora of information, including this template to be used. It is preset in the fashion that we would like for Cornell Notes to be taken. I'd like to show you this before we set up our own Cornell paper on notebook paper. Now we're going to use a piece of regular notebook paper to set up our Cornell Note format. Step 1. Take the left side of your paper and fold it about 3/4 of the way over to the right side. Or as I tell my students, the side with the holes should be folded over to the red line on the right. Next, unfold your paper. Use your pencil to create the sections that you will need in the Cornell note-taking process. First, count up about 5 or 6 lines from the bottom of the page and draw a line straight across your paper. This bottom section will be used as our summary a little later on. Next, divide your paper according to the crease that you made in the fold in our first step. These two sections will be used in our note-taking process to actually take our notes and then create thinking questions to go along with them. The top of the page should be left clear so that we can label our notes appropriately. This is the next step. Remember that with Cornell Notes, you'll need to include your course title, your date, and the topic of the notes. That goes in your top section. Some teachers may also require your students to include an essential question on their notes. This question should guide their thinking and be answered directly by the ideas that are contained within the notes. Next, you'll be ready to actually take your notes on the topic that is provided. The large section will be used to write down your ideas. We'll go back later to the small section to record our questions. Let's take a generic topic that we all understand, like parts of a car. I'll show you how to record some notes in the same fashion that your student would be expected to do by a lecture, video, or handout from their teacher. The first basic part of the car we're going to use is the doors. I'm going to record that part in my wide section that includes my notes and list a few things about the doors. What are the function of the doors in the car? As my notes, I would write down that they're used to get in and out. Let's also talk about the tires. They're used to put the car in motion. We have a steering wheel. And that's used to guide the car in the right direction. We also have a trunk, used as extra storage space. Of course, there are many other parts of the vehicle, but I wanted to use those as a basic reminder of how to fill out your large section in your Cornell Notes paper. Within 24 hours, your student will need to take his or her notes home, review them, read over them, revise them, and condense the ideas. You may want to have your student use a highlighter in order to mark key ideas that they need to know for a test or a later assignment. After your student revises his or her notes, the next part is really important to make sure they understand what they just took notes on. We're going to go to our left section, which is a little more narrow than our notes-taking section. Your student will need to think of higher level thinking questions that could be answered by the notes on the right. We'll label those questions right next door to the note it belongs to. For example, if I wanted to develop a question to let me know about the function of the doors on the automobile, maybe I would come up with a question like, what is the function of the door on the vehicle? Of course, remind your students to use proper punctuation. If we have a question, we need a question mark to go with it. Your student would continue to pull out higher level thinking questions all the way down the page for as many notes as it applies to. At the bottom, we'll go back after we've revised, highlighted, read, and created our questions and make a brief 3 to 5 sentence summary. This is used to reinforce your students' understanding of the topic they have just completed. Cornell notes are widely used by AVID students. However, they are effective for any student in any class. The interactive piece comes later on as your students read, revise, highlight their notes, create their questions, and write their summary. A really handy way to use Cornell notes as well is to have your students fold the question section behind their notes section and use it as a quick study guide. Let me show you what I mean. When my notes are folded in this way, I can quiz myself using the questions I created and referring to the notes that go with the questions. I can also reread my summary to make sure that I understood what my notes were pertaining to. Cornell Notes are an interactive note-taking system that will help your student understand the topics that have been given in class. Remember, you need to start by creating with your own piece of notebook paper your Cornell Note template by folding the left side over to the right. Unfold your paper and don't forget to create the sections that will be needed for your different notes. Always go to the top of your page and label your paper with your course title, your date, and your topic. Then your notes will be listed in the wide section on the right. Remember, within 24 hours, read, highlight, and revise your notes. Also, on the left side, make sure that your student creates higher level thinking questions to match the notes that go right beside them. The last thing your student wants to do is create their summary at the bottom of the page to make sure that they understood the topic that was being covered. Always advise your student to keep their Cornell notes in their binder as a way to stay organized. Thank you for joining us for this learning session about Cornell Notes. Be sure to stay tuned as other learning sessions will follow with tips to keep your student prepared and organized and ready for success.